Talks resume in Vienna today to try to rescue the Iran nuclear deal. Diplomats from Britain, France, Germany, Russia and China are meeting Iranian counterparts for the first time since the hardliner Ebrahim Raisi was elected president 5 years ago. US officials will take part in negotiations indirectly. The officials will discuss the possible return of the US to the 2015 accord. It's known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, which limited Iran's nuclear activities in return for the lifting of sanctions. Iran has violated key commitments since then. President Donald Trump pulled out in 2018 and reinstated US sanctions. President Biden, though, is willing to lift them if Iran reverses the breaches.
All right, let's now shift our attention to our continuing coverage of the simmering tensions between Ukraine and Russia and the West. Now, in the latest, NATO's foreign ministers will be meeting today to discuss how to counter a Russian military build-up that is taking place along Ukraine's border. Now, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Latvia for the meeting, and Western nations, led by the United States, are extremely worried that Moscow could be planning a ground invasion in some parts of the Ukraine along the border. After reports of Kremlin amassing forces close to Ukraine's border, NATO, which still remains uncertain of President Putin's intentions, is all set to discuss the contingency plans in case these fears of a possible Russian invasion into Ukraine were to come true.
It's the moment passengers learned they were exposed to Omicron, the scary new COVID variant.
This is the situation we are facing.
600 passengers on 2 flights from South Africa were detained for 4 hours on the tarmac in Amsterdam. When they were herded into the terminal, everyone was tested. When the results came in, 61 passengers tested positive for COVID, and of those, 13 had Omicron. Photographer Paula Zimmerman kept a video diary of the chaos.
Everybody's waiting now to get tested. There's little social distancing going on as far as I can see it. The people are getting more and more upset and they want food and they're yelling a little bit.
As the tense hours ticked by, airport workers handed out sandwiches to hungry passengers.
Prince of Wales has arrived in Barbados to attend tomorrow's ceremony marking the island's transition to a republic. Barbados, which gained its independence from the United Kingdom back in 1966, has since been a Commonwealth realm, with the Queen as head of state. Its membership of the Commonwealth will continue.
A nation with a complex past, slave ships once docked here, Africans brought and exploited by the British.
And it's the sugarcane fields where many were forced to work, cutting down the crop before it was processed. The backbreaking labour led many to die young.
After slavery came to an end in 1834, Barbados remained a British colony. Despite gaining its independence in 1966, the Queen has remained the island's head of state, but that's about to change.
In a city of 15 million, the wild winds had many ducking for cover, as gusts of up to 130 kilometres an hour ripped roofs off buildings, overturned trucks on the motorway, and tore down a clock tower. The powerful storm pounding Istanbul and other parts of Turkey, causing flights to be diverted and ferry services cancelled. Security cameras capturing an incredibly close call. This man narrowly escapes being hit by falling blocks of concrete. Turkish authorities say one of the victims was a woman hit by part of a roof that landed on her and her child. The child was injured but survived.
the court agreed to a defence motion from Suu Kyi's lawyers for a postponement because they have a late witness they want to bring in, a medical doctor who hadn't been able to testify previously because his health was not in good condition. The court agreed, and so the case has been put back for at least a week. I should say what we've had today is essentially a delay of the inevitable. Suu Kyi is on trial for a slew of charges, more than 10, which range from incitement of public unrest to sedition to corruption to election fraud. If the sentences are all imposed consecutively, which is the tradition in Myanmar, and if she's found guilty, which seems very little doubt, she would receive a tally of more than 100 years in detention. Now, you know, for anyone that's a life sentence, never mind for a 76-year-old woman.
China sent 27 military aircraft into Taiwan's air defense buffer zone on Sunday, the same day a Baltic delegation touched down on the island. For the first time, the PLA deployed a Y-20 aerial refueling aircraft. Taiwan's defense minister said that Chinese military harassment of Taiwan has become routine and that Taiwan had a full grasp of all Chinese missions in its vicinity. Foreign Minister Joseph Wu had a much sharper response, declaring on Twitter that Taiwan will, quote, never, 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 end quote, bow to Chinese pressure.
Forming a heart with two hands, a guest from afar greets the camera. Lawmakers from 3 Baltic states flew to Taiwan on Sunday, defying Beijing's stiff objections. On the day of their arrival, China sent 27 military aircraft into Taiwan's southwestern air defense buffer zone. Some of the aircraft flew straight to the edge of Taiwan's southeastern airspace before turning back. For the first time, the mission included a Y-20 aerial refueling aircraft.
16-year-old Ahmed is one of an estimated 1 million Yemenis sheltering in displacement camps like this one on the outskirts of Marib province. Fighting has escalated around the gas-rich Marib province, controlled for now by the internationally recognized government backed by Saudi Arabia. But the Iranian-backed Houthis have stepped up their offensive on the province and its capital city. And as the fighting intensifies, Yemenis have been forced to flee their homes for displacement camps with few provisions.